CLIC Connect. I'm your host, Craig Sullivan. Look, I got Tim Edgar here with me in the studio. Tim, how are you, buddy?
Good to see you, Craig. Good to see you.
Good seeing you. Hey, this is going to be a great episode. You know, for those of you that don't know Tim, he is one of the true leaders and good guys in our industry, especially here in the California hotel market. We go back more decades than we care to remember. But let's thank our production partners for this show today. That's our good friends at Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group. You know, if you need a new hotel brand, Red Roof could be a great alternative for you. Give Matt Hostetler a call. He'd love to hear from you. And you can call Steven Seft at Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group. He's in their new hotel practice within the commercial group. So, you know, right now, every deal is critical. You've got to hit your targets, your dates. You've got to close on time. So give our friends at Chicago Title a call. Joining me in the studio today, Tim Edgar, founder of Hotel Innvestor. Tim, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Doing really well.
Good.
It's nice to be in studio. Before I think we had done
remote
online, right? So very good to see you in person. For sure.
Definitely. We're looking forward to this. So, Tim, for our audience, please tell them who you are and about Hotel Innvestor, please.
Sure. So, I've been in the hotel business since 1991.
Okay.
Started in operations, actually, at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. Quickly got out of operations as quickly as I could, and brokered hotel properties here in California for over 20 years. I had personally consummated about $1.2 billion worth of hotel properties.
Nice.
And as you know, you don't close nearly all the deals that you work on. So I've literally underwritten hundreds of other deals that, didn't sell. So a lot of experience in reviewing the finances and debt and equity in the hotel capital stack. So I started Hotel Innvestor in 2015 to focus really more on the ownership side.
Okay.
And we're focused primarily on raising joint venture equity for our operating partners, or development partners. We're really focused on being able to bring in money and also place money with our partners.
Right.
But again, the idea of the company was to focus more on ownership for us as well as our partners, and to help them be able to accomplish their goals, whether that's development or acquisition.
Nice. Now, with bringing that debt and equity together, that certainly expanded your knowledge to a whole nother level, even though you were selling hotels and everything else and working with usually a pretty finite group of lenders back when you were a broker.
Right.
So now you've got connections, whether it's CMBS, national banking institutions, community banks, and private equity, right?
Well, correct. And I would say the bigger difference, when we go out and we try to find equity, we deal with certainly high net worth individuals, but kind of smaller family offices or smaller funds. Quite frankly, most of them don't like hotels. They don't want to invest in hotels. And what I get a lot of is, hey, we don't want to own a hotel, but we would lend to a hotel.
Okay.
So getting into that world of basically kind of alternative asset investors has certainly opened up channels of alternative sources of debt for sure. And it's always elusive trying to find the new sources of equity.
Right.
And that seems to kind of ebb and flow, because most of these people are not pure hotel play. They're looking for whatever asset class, or whether it's crypto or other niche markets that they can take advantage of. So that is a constant process of knowing who's in the market right now looking to place money.
Absolutely. Crypto. I mean, I don't think that's what anybody wants to play in right now.
I don't think they're very happy about that right this second.
Yeah. Yeah. Which off on a tangent with that, but everybody wanted deregulation, and now they're all screaming that they want the feds to step in. It's like, okay, you can't have your cake and eat it too. All right.
Correct.
It's not going to happen. So what are you seeing in the market up now? Sure. It's different. It's, we got a lot of issues, economically, certainly global recession, a few other things. So what's going on out there? You got your finger on the pulse.
So I have been through multiple cycles.
Yeah.
And this is different than any one that I've been through. It kind of seems like they always keep bringing something new, because the last one was really the first test of the CMBS market. So it's always something different. But this recovery has been very uneven.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there's been, markets of haves and have-nots. Okay. Early on, drive-through markets did really, really well. Extended stay did well in particular.
Yeah.
We have a residence in North Carolina in the Pinehurst market, and that property came back very quickly compared to other properties that we have. And so still right now, you don't have the group business. It's starting to come. I mean, we were in person in Phoenix and Alice this year, although with limitations. But basically big box full service hotels with 25,000, 50,000 square foot of meeting space are still lagging the market. There's no question. And certain, urban centers have been lagging. Chicago comes to mind for sure, where, we're seeing a lot of receiver sales, note sales, REOs in the general Chicago marketplace. So at the same time, then you have a $650 million sale of the Montage.
Gosh, right.
Okay. So certain assets didn't really trade. There was never the wave of distress that was forecast. And that is one of the interesting things also about this recovery, is that there was literally billions of dollars that were raised anticipating a wave of foreclosures.
Fire sale, yeah.
And it never occurred. And some of those funds just gave their money back, but there's still a lot of that capital that's floating around in the marketplace. And the other reason that this whole, stay-at-home order from the federal government, I mean, is completely unprecedented. Right? They said you cannot go to hotels.
Yeah.
Okay. So since they basically crushed the hotel business, they felt compelled with the PPP and other, financial assistance programs to try and help hotels, but that also artificially manipulated the market.
Yeah.
That you didn't have this, falling out of inability to pay. And then, of course, and certainly in 2020, going into last year, if you were a lender and you lent to a hotelier because they're an expert and they know what they're doing and they have a track record, and you're in Hawaii and they're running 8% occupancy, do you want to foreclose on that and run that property?
No.
Or do you want to trust the expert that you lent to figure out the best way to try and right the ship and be able to repay that debt?
Yeah.
So those effects are now, we're coming out of that, where certainly lenders are much more willing to foreclose. I would say a lot of the things that I saw were mostly problem properties before COVID.
Right.
I haven't really seen too much of where like COVID just killed the
Killed
property.
the market. Yeah.
So, we're seeing some of that business shake out. But, I look at something like the Marriott in Newport Beach here, Fashion Island, what is it, Vea?
Vea now. Yeah.
So I looked at that sale, and I really don't think there was much, certainly no, I think less than a 5% discount of what I think they could have sold that property for in 2019.
Exactly.
But because of its location, they were able to command that same pricing because it was so desirable. And, it's a $400 million plus transaction.
Yeah.
So it moved the needle in terms of the balance sheet for Host.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a distressed sale as such, but it was a distressed sale, and that asset wouldn't have been for sale if there wasn't distress.
Correct.
So, and it made more sense to sell that asset it essentially no discount or little discount than selling one of their hotels that was in trouble, because then people would be looking for that discount.
Well, and I agree with you on that. And you and I have had this conversation for years on that hotel. Okay. It was not shepherded very well. I mean, the renovations that were done were far and few between. And the flooring alone they put in a pseudo renovation a few years ago, every time somebody took a step, it echoed throughout the entire property. Okay. Now I got to tell you, I love what the new ownership group's done with it. It looks great. I'm really excited to see what happens with the old Four Seasons Island Hotel and it becoming a Pendray. So I mean, those markets are back. Now, you mentioned Chicago. What about San Francisco? I mean, that's an urban market that crashed and burned right alongside Chicago, and I would say a good chunk of New York too, because they've got hotels that are not coming back.
Right, in Washington D.C.
Yeah.
I mean, the Warden Park 1,100
rooms,
gone. No, it's amazing because we've always thought of San Francisco as basically this unassailable market.
Right.
It was going to always be so strong, and it certainly has historically been. But COVID, people liked being out of the city, out in the open, and that's why a lot of these drive-to markets did so much better.
Central Coast,
exactly correct. So it's lagging. It is now. They're still able to get the rate, but one of the big things too is the Pacific Rim travel was crushed. I mean, there was that's a huge part of the San Francisco market is the visitors from Asia.
Vancouver too. So
that's, that hasn't come back yet.
Right.
Okay. It's starting to come back. There's, some loosening of rules. I think Japan just loosened some of their regulations. So it's starting to kind of generate back and forth travel, if you will. And I anticipate that it will come back. But again, in my mind, that's the unevenness of the recovery, where it's the tide isn't lifting all boats.
Right.
Certain boats are still
going underwater.
Right.
They're becoming submarines at this point. Now, okay, let's talk about that for a second. You've got airfares that are 40% higher than 3 years ago. Okay. And a 10 to 15% cut in flights that we had 3 years ago. You've got hotel rates that are up 20 to 30% in certain markets.
Right.
Our friends at Pacifica Hotels did exceedingly well with their properties in the Central Coast during the pandemic. We created a new category as far as I'm concerned. I wish the whole industry would jump on it, and that's bleisure. Okay. You take your family with you. You've got a business trip. They pick up a couple of days. They come with you. And, I think our whole definition of road warrior and digital nomad is going to change. But, what's your thinking on all that?
Well, I think there's no question that it will. And in some ways it might be even accelerated right now because we have this inflationary pressure on business travel. But at the same time, you've also had the experience of COVID that you don't really have to be in a meeting with someone. You don't have to be in the studio, right? You can do this online. So with that recent knowledge that you don't really need to travel as much as you thought you did before COVID, and then you also have the as you said, the inflationary pressure on airfare, on the hotel room, on every other aspect of the business travel. It's leading more people to work remotely. And we know, certainly in the tech world, that there's still resistance about going back to the office at all.
Yeah, and some of the financial markets back, I don't think J.P. Morgan Chase is gotten their people back into their offices in Manhattan.
They don't want to go back.
No, they don't.
That's the crazy thing. And at least right now, they're able to get away with it. It will be interesting to see the long-term effects on office space. I think hotels. People have to travel, and that's why we're able to get the rates that we're getting, is because the people that are traveling basically need to travel,
right?
And that's why people are paying the airfare.
Yeah,
so the great thing about hotels is, we're uniquely positioned. This is really when you want to own hotels, that we can raise our rates every day,
right,
as the market will bear. So as inflation has gone up, that's why our average rate has gone up.
Yeah.
And there's no question that rate has been the key driver of RevPAR growth for the last 24 months at least. And I, really see that in the near term, it is continuing to be the engine of growth for hotels, for the hotel industry.
I agree with you. But how do we get our urban markets back? How does downtown LA? I think the gas lamp is different.
Right.
Okay. It's on the water, it's urban, but again, it's on the water. San Francisco, Chicago, New York, downtown LA, Miami, Dallas, a few of the other, top 25 markets. Now, no offense to anybody in Arizona, but I'm taking Phoenix out of it because you've got too much supply and not enough demand anyhow, and too much old product that needs to come out. But how is that going to get resolved? And if you're looking to place debt and equity into a deal in San Francisco or Chicago, how do you underwrite that?
Yeah, I wish I had better answers. Quite frankly,
I just want honest answers.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll give you the honest answer. I'm not really interested in Chicago or San Francisco right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
now
3 years ago, that wouldn't have been the story.
Oh, 100%. The reason that I say that is because of the difficulty of underwriting going forward in very uncertain terms.
Yeah.
Where, I have greater confidence in the underlying numbers in many, many other markets. Okay. Yeah. Now, that's not to say, obviously, we're opportunistic. We're long-term hotel owners,
right?
Investors. If we found a good opportunity, we know how to underwrite it. We could figure it out. Yeah. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't do a deal in San Francisco or I wouldn't do a deal in New York City, but I would be more than cautious.
Right.
My underwriting would be extremely conservative, and to a sense that, it would have to basically be a no loss situation. And essentially
it has to be. Okay, let's take a look at the financial meltdown. Now, we had friends that handed back hotels. Mm-hmm. They bought what was a W in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And they woke up one morning and they were underwater because it was over leveraged. Right. Okay. And you don't want to be in that position. You just don't want to be in that position. Yeah. But let's take a look at Los Angeles. You and I both know, and we're following, what's going on in the city. The council, the city council put out a ballot measure for 2024 where hotels within the city limits would have to shelter homeless people. Right. How do you?
I don't believe that's constitutional, quite frankly. I don't know that that's going to stand judicial review.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you can make a private business do a government service. Yeah. We've already seen, obviously, the funds and all over the country, but in California specifically, of converting hotels into housing, and a lot of it's lower end. And that's fine. I think there's a place for that, but I really just don't think that the city of Los Angeles can make a private business do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would be horrible for business.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to want to pay any rate to stay with homeless people? I mean, it's just, it would be crushing for Los Angeles area hotels.
Well, and the hotel industry knows it's a lot of small businesses.
Right.
Okay. The traveling public does not know that. And, I think, I've had Chip Rogers on, I've had, CH&LA on as well. And we've talked about this subject, and it's about messaging. We've got to get that out to the public. And, this is a horrible idea.
Right.
And, I agree with you. Thinking about it constitutionally, I don't think you can force a private business to do that, but I'm not an attorney. It's just my opinion as well.
Well, it doesn't mean that they can't pass the law. It just means that somebody's going to have to spend a bunch of money with attorneys to challenge it. So it's a lose-lose for the hotel industry. There's no question.
Put your on-site team at risk. It puts the homeless person at risk. It puts your guests at risk. So it's just a bad idea all the way around.
And I mean, how do you? I mean, I don't know what clauses they have exactly in the franchise agreement, but I could. You might be running afoul of other agreements that you have.
Yeah. I think your loan covenants are one of them right there, and your insurance.
Yeah.
So, but let's move on to another subject. What's on the horizon? What excites you about the hotel market right now?
Right. Well, first of all, we're open. There's people, there's heads and beds. So that's exciting, right?
Yes.
Coming from COVID and everything else. The rate growth it's exciting. In the properties that we're invested in, we're seeing really strong rate growth. Okay. No, that's exciting. But we're also, long-term investors in hotels. And I think some of the opportunities, we didn't see those opportunities, the wave of distress that was supposed to happen.
Right.
But because of the rising interest rates, inflationary pressure, there's basically upward pressure on cap rates, downward pressure on pricing.
Yeah.
There is a lot of hotel debt that's maturing in the next 12 to 18 months. And there is most assuredly a lot of that is not going to be able to get refinanced.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I
that means the owner has to either come out of pocket, sell, or bring in new equity. And we can help in those situations. So we're, kind of excited about, trying to identify high quality assets where we can come in and help out a quality sponsor, just kind of right size the debt. And so that they're not forced to sell. We've explored several of those opportunities, but quite frankly, there wasn't enough pain. There's still PPP money or other money.
There's still lingerings out there.
That sounds okay, but there literally wasn't a smoking gun. Where we see this debt maturity situation is, the push to make something happen.
Yeah. And that's the pain that I see right in front of us.
Right.
Is, okay. And hopefully the owners kept their lender involved and up to speed with what was going on. If you went radio silent, you're not getting a refinance. Okay. It just isn't going to happen.
Right.
But, something's got to give with that. And, it sucks that if your loan's coming due, then all of a sudden you're going from a reasonable interest rate to a rather high one now.
Right.
But that's going to be part of it. You're going to be able to refinance down the road and get out of that and get back into something that's more tolerable.
I agree with you 100%, but I would only point out that historically speaking, interest rates are still ridiculously low.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because
thank you. Yes.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, you could basically get a home mortgage rate for your hotel, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
When I started in the business and brokerage, I remember I listed a property,
Yeah.
and one of the key points for the sale was there was an assumable 9.5% loan.
Yeah.
That was under market at the time, right?
Yeah.
So, we'll find a way to make it work. And again, because of that inflationary pressure, it's also pushing up rate,
right?
Which helps mitigate that higher cost of capital. So, as opposed to an office building, I mean, again, I'm not involved in office buildings, but I follow all commercial real estate. My understanding, it's pretty difficult to get a loan on an office building right now.
Yeah, and I think that's the bubble that's going to burst. But touching on that point about rates and everything, okay, my first cycle was in the 70s, okay, and we had double-digit unemployment, we had double-digit interest rates, right. We had double-digit inflation.
Prime at 18% or something like that.
And, a couple of things happened. One, you started having exotic instruments come to be, land contracts and all-inclusive deeds of trust, because everybody understood that the market just could not stop. Now, and I agree with you. If you're getting a commercial loan of 3%, that's a home rate, and that's great. Now, I've always felt, because I've seen these cycles from the 70s to date, and my personal feeling has always been, if everything is less than double digits, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I may not like it, but I'm okay. And again, debt is a tool, and you should be using it properly and not ratcheting it up all the time. So,
well, and I can tell you from our standpoint, we're not looking for high leverage. And that's one of the reasons we really haven't had any stress or distress in our properties. And that's the only time you can really get in trouble, right? Is when you over lever.
That's it.
So,
all right, my friend,
we're optimistic about the future.
Definitely.
Love being in the hotel business.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to go into our lightning round. So producer Danny's going to put 2 minutes on the clock. Word association starting now. Tech.
Sustainability.
Conferences.
Coming back.
Trophy assets.
Love them.
Favorite college football team.
My alma mater. Going to the playoffs for the first time, USC.
There you go. Bowl game.
Rose Bowl.
Favorite airport.
John Wayne.
Barefoot people on an airplane.
They can do it. I just think it's gross.
I agree. Aisle or window?
Kind of a big guy. I go for the aisle.
Tequila or whiskey?
That is the eternal question. I'd have to say it depends on who I'm hanging out with, honestly.
Well, if it's me, it's tequila.
Right.
I can't drink whiskey.
Exactly.
Favorite hotel or resort?
Oh, my. How about the Del Coronado.
There you go. You did that with 1 minute, 7 seconds left. Perfect. All right, my friend. We are at the end of the show. And the one thing that I want to talk to you about and thank you for, you have been a founding sponsor of the California Lodging Investment Conference since year 1. And you are continuing that at CLIC 6 on March 1st and 2nd. So thank you for that. What are you looking forward to at our next event?
Well, the great thing about CLIC is it's California centric, and it's a great opportunity to get caught up with the different markets in California, kind of more intimately. Some of the larger national conferences, you do get trends, but it kind of tends to be on a more macro level, which is good. But again, I look forward to that California centric information, and certainly catching up with a lot of my friends in the industry.
Absolutely. Tim, shameless plug. How can everybody get a hold of you and talk to you about debt and equity?
Sure. Well, you can always go to hotelinvestor.com or give me a call at 714-485-4825.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you being on the show.
Appreciate it.
Well, Tim's got to stick around while I close the show. Normally it's just me, but it'll be the two of us. I want to thank our production partners, Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group. They would both love to hear from you. Let them know that producer Danny and I sent you. Means a lot to us. Go ahead.
I think
Tim.
with the what Steve's doing there, a hotel specific title is really specialization. Certainly when I was brokering, we only worked with people, escrow officers, title officers like Craig, that understood the asset class. So I think that's a really great thing what they're doing, and I would encourage people to speak to Steve.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea as well. And we've got CLIC 6 coming March 1st and 2nd.
Yes, sir.
2023. We are returning to the Westin South Coast Plaza. So join us there. We've added hours more of networking. You asked for it, you got it. What used to be our VIP mixer is now sponsored by the brands, and we're opening it up to all of the registered attendees, all the speakers, all the exhibitors, all the sponsors. So great night. We're going to have 2.5 hours the night before on the 1st. Then we've got a whole new conference for you on the 2nd. We've taken away one panel. We're only doing 3 panels and our development deal of the year. We've got more networking in there during the day. And we're also going to end a little earlier, and we're going to extend our post-conference networking mixer. So we've got a lot more going on. Please go to CLIconference.com. You can register, you can see the agenda, and you can get your room reservation. So, Tim, thank you again for joining me today in the studio. Thank you, our audience. And as I'm fond of saying, be kind, share your knowledge. Now go be amazing.